Welcome to the Helicopter Podcast, your go-to source for all things rotorcraft. I'm Halsey Scheider, bringing you the stories, insights, and conversations from around the helicopter industry. Whether you're a seasoned pilot, a maintainer, or you're just passionate about helicopters, this is the podcast for you.
It's time for your Heli Life giveaway buzzword. Listen up and remember this word because you'll need it to enter for a chance to win exclusive Heli Life gear. Ready? This episode's buzzword is DISC. Visit contest.verticalhelicasts.com to enter the buzzword.
What's up, guys? It's Halsey Scheider with the Helicopter Podcast, and this is a blast from the past episode. My good buddy Tony Melendrez from my Maverick helicopter days is joining me on today's show. Tony is one of my favorite people. He was one of my most favorite people while at Maverick. And even recently, I got to catch up with Tony and one of my other really good buddies, Casey, as they are actually stationed near my house in Central Oregon fighting fires in the S-61. So excited to catch up with Tony today and see where he's gone since his Maverick days. His path and mine kind of went opposite directions. He's doing super badass stuff, and I'm writing a lot of emails now. So I think Tony's winning. But to our sponsors, thank you guys so much for making the Helicopter Podcast possible. And of course, to MHM Publishing and creating the Vertical HeliCAST platform. We couldn't do it without your support. We love working with you guys, and we're honored to be on the Vertical HeliCAST platform with so many awesome other podcasts and podcasters. Except John Gray and the Hangar Z podcast. I don't really like him. I'm just kidding. I love John. He's great. Tony, welcome to the Helicopter Podcast. How are you?
Thanks, Halsey. I'm doing good.
Tony, you, for me, my very first memory of you, I was in my Maverick training class. John Bowling, who's a legend in his own right, was our instructor. I think I was his first class.
I remember John. Yeah.
And it was our Vegas intro day or whatever you call it. I don't know, where you go to the Vegas, ramp and office and terminal and check it out. And then I think we actually flew from Vegas and flew the route with John. And you're the first person I saw in the pilot lounge. I don't know if you remember that. You probably don't. But yeah, I introduced myself and I just knew right away. I'm like, this guy's cool. This guy is super cool.
Thanks. I don't remember that. Sorry.
It's all good. So are you in Grants Pass now?
Yeah, we just got put down here about 4 days ago.
So bummed. So Casey, I want to talk about this dynamic between you and Casey flying together because it cracks me up. But
yeah,
my dad and I last Friday, my dad loves airplanes and helicopters. Was not a pilot, but he just loves aviation. And we recently went to an air show together. And then I was like, oh man, you know what? I'm going to kind of bail out early Friday and take my dad to Madras and go check out the S-61. Casey actually used to paint houses for my dad. He worked for my dad when he was in flight school. So my dad and Casey are like, he considers Casey one of his sons, which is really funny. And we both know that Casey's a dirtbag, so he doesn't measure up to our standards of being a son. But anyway, we're so bummed. He was like, oh man, I'm going to Grants Pass. So that's how I knew you were there. I was bummed, but I was so happy to see you guys. It was so fun to connect. I think one of my favorite things about the helicopter industry is these lifelong friendships that you create. Has that been your experience too?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like a small industry. So when you get to know people, most likely your paths are going to cross again, even though the jobs you can get can take you all over the world. A lot of times you're going to start running into people, especially once you get a lot of years under your belt in the industry, and randomly you'll run into a buddy that you hadn't seen in, like 7-8 years in Madras, Oregon.
Yeah. Out of all places, of course.
Yeah.
Small, a very small industry. And that's what makes it very neat. Also makes it so you have to be very careful, right? Everyone kind of knows everyone. If you don't directly know someone, then you know at least of someone that might know that someone. So it's always about minding your P's and Q's. I want to get into your career path from Maverick, but we first have to talk about your darkest day at Maverick. And I want to know if you recall the amazing awesomeness of what I did for you that day. So why don't you enlighten us with your worst day flying tours at Maverick Helicopters?
Yeah. So that was definitely a doozy. I think there's a lot of ironies in that day, but I think the biggest one was, once a month we did our pilot meetings, and this was like, I think it was middle of the summer. So it's like, everybody, it's hot. Everybody's doing 3-a-days. And so our chief pilot at the time, Jim Ogletree's, pilot meeting, which was that day, was about like, hey, it's tough, but you're doing tough things with, your coworkers, and kind of a similar thing about like building relationships with people that are going to last forever. It's like you're going to, it sucks, but you guys are doing it together. And trust me, these are going to be memories that you'll have for the rest of your lives. And, go out there and just, do your best. And so like we all left that meeting just kind of like, oh yeah, just love the suck. Haha, we're just like making jokes about it,
Yeah,
and,
whatever, Jim O.
yeah, thanks Jim for the pep talk.
Go back to your air conditioning office.
Yeah, it's like
Let's be honest, too. He was probably
outside.
like, you guys suck, by the way.
By the way, it was one of these like really hot and also super windy days. And so we loaded our passengers all up on the ramp, take off, and it's just like bumpy, windy. And, it's a 135 operation there. So you go over the briefing of the aircraft, seat belts, all this stuff. Always show your passengers, hey, these are the puke bags right here. This is the safety briefing card. This is how your seat belts work. Here's the vents for the AC. So if you want to, blow some cold air on you, you can, all that stuff. Right. So we do all that. Everybody does it. We fire up, we take off. And on the other side of like Indian Pass, which is just after the Hoover Dam, is really when the wind was like, wow, this is bumpy, turbulent, just brutal. Long story short, I had a guy sitting behind me, a grown adult, who couldn't handle the turbulence and threw up, which isn't unnormal. I mean, people throw up in the helicopter, right?
Happens.
What was unnormal for this particular event was the guy didn't use a puke bag, and he projectile vomited in front of him, which is me. And so puke went everywhere inside my sunglasses. There was like a silhouette of my head on the windscreen, got all over the instrument panel. I mean, puke went everywhere. And almost at the same time, another guy flying with us was Jared Young. And I'm like, I just got puked all over. And he's like, oh, you gotta like love the suck, like Jim was saying. I was like, no, this is like really bad. And so like I turned around, we had puke kits too. I don't know if you remember making those. You have like a puke kit with like a Ziploc bag.
Yes.
I would put under my seat, and you'd have like wet wipes and
Yes.
stuff so people could get cleaned up if they did throw up. And so I handed this guy my puke bag, this kit to him, and he opens it. And instead of like pulling stuff out, he puked inside of it.
Oh, God.
And it was just like, at that point, I had enough. I just like, I went pilot ISO, so I didn't talk to anybody. It was too windy to fly, so we all turned around, and we were on our way back, and I just beelined it back. And I mean, it was like horrible. So I land, there's like throw up everywhere. And it's a big deal at Maverick to be like super professional, have clean aircraft. Like they wanted everything to be perfect. So if you did have something like that, you had to clean your aircraft to make sure it was good to go no matter what. Well, I had to do strip tours that night, and I was like, there's no way I'm doing strip tours in this aircraft. But dispatch was like, oh, you're doing strip tours. And I was like, well, I need to go change. I've got to throw up all over. And so Jared Young, I mean, he was awesome. He's like, I'll help you clean your aircraft. Halsey, I mean, like, dude, amazingly, you hooked me up with, so I think used gym clothes. I think you just gone to the gym. They weren't.
I had dreams of going to the gym at some point, Tony, and I didn't go.
I shattered those dreams because I literally stripped down to my underwear on the ramp and put on your gym clothes.
Yeah,
threw all my clothes in the garbage, and
you were even actually threatening, and I don't know if you did or not, but you were threatening throwing away your Bose headset.
I did throw it away.
You threw away your head. I mean,
I did.
To our listeners, I can't express how upset Tony was. I was there.
There was throw up everywhere. I mean, it was dripping down my back. It covered my headset. It was everywhere.
That is disgusting.
It was horrible.
that was definitely one of the occupational hazards of flying at Maverick. I would say that at least at my time at Maverick, that was was the worst throw up situation for sure.
Yeah.
And as Tony was saying, is when you're briefing, I always try to really emphasize. I'd be like, this is like the most important part of my briefing. Okay. If you at all like just feel like you might get sick, look, just pick it up. It's totally fine. Like just pick it up, hold it. And if you have to throw up, use it. Don't hold it. Just put it in the bag. Not a big deal. So I would stress that.
This guy didn't speak English, which was another challenge because I don't think he got it.
That hurts. Yeah, that hurts.
It was rough. I had people throw up in the aircraft. Like you said, it just happens. And this was by far the worst. And everybody that saw it was like, this is insane. I mean, there was puke. When I say everywhere, it was my silhouette was on the windscreen. It was insane. And like, to be fair, people helped me out big time. Jared helped me clean the aircraft, but it was dark. I got back. I went home, showered, came back, did strip tours all night. Went to bed. It was like probably like 2 a.m. by the time I got home that night. And I get a phone call the next morning at like 6:30 in the morning. And it was the chief pilot, Jim. And I was like, oh no, like what happened? Maybe he's calling about like, hey, great job. Thanks for flying strips last night after what you went through. But instead it was Jim, and he was angry. And he was like, hey, what, your aircraft smells like throw up. Like I'm supposed to fly this morning. Like it's not clean. Like, we don't put up with this kind of stuff. And I was like, at that point I kind of had enough. And I was like, you have no clue what I went through. I did strip tour. And I was tired. So I was like halfway awake.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I should probably calm down a little bit. I was like, hey man, I'm really sorry. It was a rough night. And then as soon as I said that, I heard Dwayne and Jim both started laughing, and they just were calling to give me crap about it. And they're like, dude, that's insane. Everybody was talking about how insane it was. And yeah, it was funny.
Jim O gave me a gold coin for helping you.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I remember that. I had one person kind of halfway miss a bag that was sitting next to me one time. Luckily, I got nothing on me, but it was really inconvenient because it was all over the panel and the buttons,
Yeah.
And the B4 buttons. And so, like, there's really no way to actually clean it all that well, and then I took over an aircraft one time. Actually, our buddy Ben Velasquez took over an aircraft one time.
Great guy.
Love Ben. Shout out Ben Velasquez. And I was right next to him. We're on the fence side, and you know how there's like that, not the ramp. We're on the other.
Yeah.
On the fence? I don't remember. And he was like, he comes over. It's like, dude, there's barf all over this helicopter. And one of the pilots from the day before didn't do the good job that you did, and Jared and everyone pitched in, and he just left barf sitting in the helicopter all night. And so I rushed over there, and we were scrambling. It was disgusting. It was like everywhere. And it was, and people would be like, well, don't they have like people that clean the helicopters? That like, no. If someone throws up in the helicopter, you clean it. So definitely a memorable moment, horrible. And I think some of the most turbulent actually I've ever been in was flying towards a Maverick. I mean, some of that, sometimes I felt like, oh my God, I hope I don't get sick. It's like, this is really bumpy. So
yeah,
good times. How long did you end up being at Maverick?
I was at Maverick for about 5 years.
It's a long time, actually.
Yeah.
For me, I really loved the job. The company was great. I have great things to say about Maverick. Their maintenance shop, top notch.
Yeah.
They take really good care of their aircraft. But man, after 2 years, I couldn't fly that circle anymore and answer the same questions. And I felt like I was starting to become like a little bit of a detriment of customer service. I kept having this fear of like, oh God, I'm going to go on TripAdvisor and there's going to be a 1-star review and it's going to be like, Halsey sucks. And so I didn't want that to happen. So it was definitely time for me to go. But yeah, 5 years is a doozy. And I think one of the coolest things about Maverick is, there's just so many guys there flying. And so many of them, like you, I've stayed in touch with, which is really neat. And then, of course, I got Zach, who you just saw. He's working at Helicopter. We got Mavericks Boley. Ian Sweat is now at Helicopter as well.
Berserker beards.
Berserker beards. Yeah, you and I were both in the that little commercial that he shot. Remember?
That was great. Yeah, I do.
In fact, Ian brewed a special beard oil for me when I saw him last.
Oh.
And he put a little masking tape on it and called it Tegan. I don't know if you remember, but
I do remember poor Tegan.
Poor Tegan, man.
destroyed.
If he just would have had that bullet resistant beard oil, he would have been fine. Yeah, good times. And yeah, super fun recently to run into you. So now you're flying the S-61, this big old crazy helicopter. I was visiting a couple weeks ago, and I just couldn't believe how big the helicopter was. It's so funny for someone like me who's really the biggest helicopter I've flown is probably a 130. And so, you're in a 130 and then you go and stand very comfortably, fully erect, in the S-61, like it's no big thing, and the dash, though it looks pretty old, is very large. The windscreen's huge. You have two giant tanks in the back. It's just a big thing. You're flying big helicopters, and not a lot of people went that path. A lot of the Maverick guys, a lot of my friends, they did this like Maverick to air medical kind of path, I think pretty standard. But you went the heavy lift, big helicopter route. Was that always in the cards? And kind of just walk me through after you left Maverick.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
To answer that question, I kind of have to go back to like how I even got into helicopters, because when I got into flight school after I went through EMT school because I wanted to be a paramedic firefighter. That's what kind of like my family does. My brother's a firefighter. My dad was a firefighter. So that's what I wanted to do. But that was in 2008. So I went through EMT school, learned about, setting up EMS helicopter LZs and stuff. And then when I was trying to get work as an EMT, the economy crashed. It was insane. And so I wasn't able to get work. So I kind of was like, well, how can I still be a firefighter, do EMS, but just maybe from a different angle? So I was like, well, there's helicopters doing that stuff. So that's how I like started researching helicopters. So when I got to flight school, the intention was to go EMS or possibly firefighting. But once I like started researching the industry, because I knew nothing about helicopters, I knew nothing about aviation. Once I started to learn and starting to, talk to people at flight school about the different jobs, oil and gas, utility, all that stuff, it's like, dang, there's all kinds of stuff. So pretty quickly in flight school, I decided I'm just going to kind of do whatever opportunities present themselves and see what I enjoy doing. So I went to flight school starting back in 2010. So it's taken me quite a long time to get into the firefighting world. Not because it has to take that long, but because that's just kind of how my path took me. Like, as an example, like being at Maverick for 5 years isn't necessarily a normal thing to do tours, for a long time. But the reason I ended up at Maverick was because my first turbine job was at Papillon, where actually I met Zach Whitehead. We met there first. And then my wife and I wanted to start a family. So we decided to get hired when the season ended at Papillon, because that was a seasonal job, to find a more, home every night, full-time gig. And so I got hired on a Maverick and we moved to Vegas. And so I decided and my wife decided that'd be a good schedule, because it's a 5 on 2 off schedule, home every night type thing, while our daughter was young. So
can I interrupt you real fast before
Sure.
you go? Because this is fascinating to me. So remember, we're talking about the schedule. That's where we want to come back to. And I do agree. Maverick is a great place. It pays actually really well for the job. And I don't know about you, but I loved living in Vegas.
Yeah.
Living in Vegas was so fun. And then, you kind of automatically had a big group of friends to pull from. And so it was kind of easier as an adult to make friends there. And, my wife loved hanging out with you guys. and your wife. And I can't believe like your daughter was, I think, born like when we were there, and now what, she's 9 or something. Like
Yeah.
that's crazy. But
Yeah.
something that I find interesting is, so I talk about this a lot, is this idea of like, man, today, if you want to go and become a helicopter pilot, there are so many resources. You have this podcast right here. You have other podcasts. You have YouTube videos. You have influencers on Instagram. You have all these different avenues. And back when I started flying helicopters, which was just a couple years before you, so I'm assuming 2010 was nearly the same, there wasn't so many options.
Mhm.
And so I find it fascinating because I always wanted to be a pilot. Flying helicopters was not the path. I took a demo flight and the rest is history. But at least I had like this foundation of like, ever since I was 2, I was going to be a pilot. And so I had researched schools. I had gone to a year of, aeronautical university. I did all these things. So I had like this foundation. You had zero foundation, and you have this idea of going to helicopters. Was the initial thought like, oh yeah, helicopters? Like, yeah, sure. Because to me, helicopters are so obscure. So like, was it kind of like oh, that will never happen? Or, I mean, did it catch on pretty quickly?
It's a good question. I think so it's kind of weird how it happened, because I was like trying to figure out what I was going to do as an EMT during the recession in 2008. And like, I did a little bit of college, but like just the school environment was never a thing that I excelled at. So I didn't really want to go back to college or anything. I was working at a grocery store while I was in EMT school. So I was like, well, I can just keep working at a grocery store and see how long it takes to get hired as an EMT. That didn't sound like something I wanted to do. So I was like, well, I wonder about doing EMS with helicopters. And then randomly, my mom, like a week later, was like, hey, have you ever thought about flying helicopters? And I was like, that's weird. Why would you say that? She's like, I don't know. I just thought about that. And I was like, that's okay. I was like, I'm going to look into it. So like, there was still Google back then. We're not that old. So I did a little bit of research.
Google?
Yeah, Google. So I did a little bit of research, figured out that there's like jobs for helicopter pilots. And I found 2 flight schools. One was pretty close to where I lived, and another one was about 2 hours away. I went to these schools, checked it out, and was like, yeah, people are doing this. So if they can do it, I can do it. But I need to first see if I like it. So I did also an intro flight at both schools. And I loved it. It was kind of a perfect situation for me. I've always been like, had a hard time. One of the reasons why school isn't the greatest for me, I can't sit still very well. I always want to be thinking about doing stuff. And I also like taking things that I'm thinking about and translating them into like doing, rather than like sitting at a computer type of work. So that's something I've always known that I wanted to do as a kid for a career. So that's why firefighting for like a city was something I wanted to do, because they kind of offered that. So this was like, oh, this kind of like checks all the boxes of the things I want to do. And then I did that flight and I was like, this is awesome. And then I ended up picking the school that was closest to my house, Specialized Helicopters. Shout out to them. Awesome school. Chris Gallardi owns it. It's in Watsonville, California. Super great guy. One of the things that was awesome about Specialized and Chris and the instructors that he had there were they really wanted people to succeed. And so one of the things that my instructor told me like right out the gate was, hey, go to these few different websites, justhelicopters.com, jsfirm.com, start looking at different jobs, seeing what the hour requirements are, there was also a website back then called like helicoptersalaries.com or something. And so it's like you kind of see, but then Just Helicopters started doing that like annual salary thing where you could like they would come out and say, oh, people doing in this sector and that sector, different pay and stuff. And so, so that's kind of how I got my education on the industry. And then of course, like, when I started flight school, there were guys there, there were pilots there just leaving. You get to meet people and get their numbers and emails and you keep in touch. And, you kind of realize there's like this progression and path of, how to get into the industry. Cause when you in a Robinson, you need to get turbine time. And then with turbine time, you need to, there's just all these little like benchmarks you need to get. So that's how I got my education in the helicopter industry.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And I guess I do forget we did have the Google back then. I just remember though feeling so limited. I remember I went on I went to Hillsboro for my flight training, and all I could do is just keep going to their website and watching their video. They had like a, become a helicopter pilot video. I just had that thing on repeat, and I just was amped. I got so amped on helicopters. I just find it fascinating. And that's almost, I don't know if you have what kind of faith you have, if any, but that seems like a little serendipitous of like you thinking that you're going to fly helicopters or this idea, and then your mom randomly just says that. So again, that's strange to me, but really cool. It almost feels like, your path was meant to be in helicopters, and I'm glad it was. So I cut you off. You're talking about getting to Maverick because of the schedule. You had previously been at Papillon. You and your Mary want to start a family, which you have done. And Maverick was like the good place, albeit you were there for a long time. But look, early, young little baby, benefits, good salary, good tips. I mean, it was a great place to be.
Yeah, one thing I learned pretty quickly too in the industry is like you can be gone a lot depending on what type of work you do, and so which was something I was okay with, and my wife was okay with, but for the first few years of my kid's life, we decided it'd probably be best to be home as much as possible. So that's why Maverick was such a great fit. And not only was it the schedule, but like you said, working at Maverick for me was awesome. Like we worked with some really great people. Management was always super great. Just got to know a lot of really great people. So it was not just like an awesome schedule and the pay good, but it was also a good fit in terms of safety and just culture and friend groups and stuff. But once you're there for a while, like this is kind of how it goes, I think, in all these like first time jobs is you get like this really awesome group of people, but then everybody starts leaving. So like for us being there 5 years, we actually went through like 3-4 groups of people. And so like at the very end, it was like a little bit sad because like when the kind of like last group of people that we had met, like kind of at the beginning left, it didn't feel quite the same. So that was kind of a challenge, but overall Maverick was amazing. Great pay, great people.
I think that we had to probably be in one of the most epic night groups.
It was a good one.
I could be wrong, and I know that the group before us probably also feels fairly epic because they were kind of like the OGs. But I felt like, I have very fond memories of sitting in the pilot's lounge at night. We're playing the flippy game with the water bottle, or yelling and we're screaming. I mean, we really
joking around, having fun.
It was a really fun environment, the nights, and
yeah,
you had to be tough. You had to have tough skin.
Yeah.
We were all fairly brutal to each other, and so you had to be able to take it, but you could give it too. And yeah, I have a fond memory of that. And what year did you end up leaving? I forget if you left before me or after.
I left in 2020.
Wow. Yeah. So you were there for like 2 more years after I left.
Yeah.
And you were there when I got there. So yeah, you were definitely there. It's a long time. You're no Tyler James, but you were there for a long time.
He's a legend.
And Matt Olson's still there.
Some great guys that are still there. And
yeah, there's some real originals. I don't know if I told you, but I actually went to Maverick a few times this past year and flew 823 with Dwayne. I have a client and friend, Joe, and he bought a 130 B4, and we had to go pick it up from Canada. He wasn't a pilot. He's learning how to be a helicopter pilot. And so I went to Henderson, hadn't flown a 130 for a long time, flew a few hours with Dwayne, and then Joe, my client, got to fly with Dwayne. And I think we ended up doing it a couple times on like 2 different occasions. And then, we flew the helicopter home, and Ian joined us as well. But yeah, it was fun. I still think that training in autos with Dwayne is
incredible.
Some of the best flight training that you can do.
Dwayne is an incredible pilot, and he wouldn't say it about himself, but he is an incredible teacher. His skill is top notch, and he's really good at explaining how to get better. I worked really closely with Dwayne the last like year and a half I was there. I ended up becoming the check airman. And he's the director of training. So him and I worked really closely together, and I really, really valued that time with him.
Yeah. Dwayne's a good guy. I always kind of said like, if the helicopter, if he lost his medical tomorrow he could walk across the street and start doing stand up at the Luxor.
He's
Like the guy, he was
hilarious.
so funny. He was fast. He was quick witted.
Yeah.
He could definitely, if you gave him a layup, he would take advantage of it,
Yeah.
and but that made it fun, and it was all in usually good fun. So it was really fun to go back and fly 820. Actually, I don't think it was 823 anymore. They have like a different one. Maybe I don't remember, but anyway, it was super fun. And actually, Ian and I are going back to Hendo in just a couple of weeks. We have MBAA, which is a big airplane, business aviation show. And so we're actually going to fly our buddies 130 from Reno. And we're calling Maverick today to see if we can park it on their ramp, because all the other static's very expensive to land there. So
yeah,
I'm excited for that. So you're a Maverick for 5 years. What happens next?
This is for those that are ready to launch their helicopter career training. Hillsboro Heli Academy, the place where pilots from around the world begin their journey. With a real-world experience and a reputation that speaks for itself, visit flyhaa.com, because it's different here.
So I finished flight school, and pretty quickly out of flight school, I got a job doing tours in Myrtle Beach in a 44. So I did that for 2 winters, so a season in the middle and 2 winters, almost 2 years.
Was that after being a CFI, or did you not go the CFI route?
I went CFI route when I finished my CFI and CFII. So that flight school that I went to at the time was Part 61. It's now 141 or 61, but at the time it was a 61 school, and it was pretty small. And there was a few instructors who were sticking around a lot longer than, the typical 1,000 hours and then leaving. So there wasn't a lot of room, and there wasn't a lot of students for me, even though Chris let me come on as an instructor. I wasn't flying much, but he had a business relationship selling helicopters to a guy named Jeremy out in Myrtle Beach, who has a tour operation. And so Jeremy was kind of desperate for a pilot because his guy was quitting. Called Chris and was like, "Hey, I need a guy. Do you have anybody?" He's like, "I got the perfect person." And so Chris was like, "Hey, can you go to Myrtle Beach like tomorrow?" And I was like, "I could be there yesterday.
Yeah,
I'll do anything for a job, man." Like, I was, it's just how it is at the beginning of your career. You literally will do anything. So yeah, I got that job, drove out there literally like the next day, interviewed, did a flight interview, and they gave me the job. So I did that. So I did tours there. Then I got my tour job at Papillon for turbine time, my first turbine opportunity. So I did tours for like 7 years by the time I was done at Maverick. And although the schedule was awesome, I was home every night, pay was good, I just started getting that feeling like I didn't get into helicopters to just fly tours. So that's kind of when I started like thinking about, well, what am I doing next type thing.
It's interesting too, and I want to obviously get to that next part, but I love hearing that it's so common in the helicopter world of like, nothing. Oh shoot, can you get on the plane and do this tomorrow? And I was in Austin. This is before Maverick, before I had my little Austin tour company. A very desperate time for me. I was having a great time, actually. I was working as a valet at the Hilton Austin. I would drink my tips away in the evening with my buddies. We had a good time. Like, we were young. It was a fun time, but it was kind of a sad and scary time because I had gone there to follow a girl, now my wife, now also baby mama. So it worked out, good to go, but very stressful. And I couldn't get a job. Papillon, for whatever reason, I had ruffled the wrong feathers at Hillsboro. I couldn't get Papillon to call me back. And I was valeting one day, get a random call from Linden, New Jersey. Pick it up. And it's like, "Hey, this is so-and-so from Liberty Helicopters." I don't think they're around anymore. I got your number through Cole. Can you be here tomorrow to interview? Like, technicality, we need someone. So I walked in to the Hilton Austin, to the manager. It was like, "Hey, I got to go. Peace." Like, I got to go and book this flight. Sorry. They're like, "Are you coming back?" I'm like, "I don't think so. I don't know." Like, effectively quitting my job. And I go back to the apartment. I book my airfare. Hillary's like kind of freaking out. Like, "What are we going to do? Are you moving?" I was like, "I don't know." And it was like $800 for the round trip airfare, which was a lot of money. And especially back then, like, I had no money.
Yeah. That
went on the credit card. Dude, booked everything. And then the guy called me back. He's like, "Oh, actually, we found a local guy. Thanks so much."
Oh my
and,
gosh.
and I couldn't get a refund. It hurt so bad, but I did actually appreciate the fact that I was just willing to go and, understand that when the opportunity arises, you just got to go, you
Yeah.
know, and my back was really against the wall. So I had no choice and I knew it was a decent operation. So, it was definitely like a sad moment. I remember being very down, probably drank a little more that night. Who knows? But it all worked out the way it was supposed to. And I'm glad it did, right? My path was so not like a straight from A to B. It was so wiggly and totally cool with that. But I love to hear, and I think it's important, Tony, our audience is a lot of newer pilots getting into the industry. So for them to hear from you and from me, this idea of like, as long as the operation is safe, they have decent maintenance, they have good practices, they're not doing shady stuff, you got to go and get on the opportunity.
It can be easy just maybe like hearing my story, because I don't talk about the failures as much as the successes. A lot of failures in terms of like not getting callbacks, not getting my resume looked at, trying to get jobs, especially those first few years. In fact, one of the reasons I accepted the podcast invite from you is just because I was like, man, when I was coming up, it was so important to hear from people that had been there and done that, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm hoping that possibly somebody could hear something I have to say and relate to it or something. But like when I was in flight school and I got my CFII and all that, and I was getting basically the scraps, as an instructor, I was getting like an intro flight here and there. I did the calculations for like how much I had flown like that first month. And to get that first 1,000 hours was going to be like 10 years. And I was like, I can't do this for 10 years. I need to do something different. I was sending resumes everywhere, like China. I was sending resumes to China, Brazil.
I know you're talking about that China program.
Anywhere. I drove all over California where I was living to flight schools, handing in my resume. I did absolutely everything I possibly could. And I couldn't get a job. I just like nothing was happening. And I was working at that grocery store. I worked there all the way through flight school. I kind of like paid my way through flight school. I worked there graveyard shift, and then I would go to flight school during the day. And then I also ended up working at the flight school at like the front desk, kind of like as a receptionist on the weekends. So I was desperate to get that first flying job. And so when that, call came through, and it's so important to like, maintain good relationships and follow, company policies and procedures at your flight school, and, have a good name for yourself, fly safely. Because when that call came through, Chris is like, yeah, Tony's a good guy. He'd be more than happy to take that job. And it was just kind of out of nowhere that it popped up, but I was willing to go out there ASAP. I didn't have a family at the time. I was single. I didn't have very much money, but I was like, yeah, I can afford to put gas in my tank and drive across the country. I had like a suitcase. That's like all I had. And that's, that desperation really, really sinks in.
When your back's against the wall, you can do incredible things, right?
Yeah.
They talk about those superhuman strengths, like the mom that lifts up the car and does the weird, pressure is good. Stress is actually good, I think, to a degree.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think it's easy for, you said you're almost 40, or are you 40?
I'll be 40 in December.
Look at that. Look, I'm 37. He's 40, almost 40, excuse me. A little bit older. We've been doing this for a long time now. And it's like, it certainly feels like, man, we've gone through a bit of the beater, right? Like it hasn't been all that easy. And so, I think that's one of the coolest parts about this podcast actually is like, that's always kind of a common denominator. Like, yes, I get to talk to really cool people that are doing really cool things like you, but for you to get to that spot was not necessarily a straight path, wasn't easy. You have to kind of fight through adversity. And I'm guessing that there's a lot of career paths that are similar to that, but the helicopter world is unique in a sense that those early on jobs don't pay very well.
No.
So financially, it's very hard.
Yeah.
You could be flying aircraft that aren't great. So not only is like your first job underpaid, but it's also probably fairly dangerous. You just got to fight through all this kind of crap, really, to get to where you want. So I think it's an important thing. So
I don't know how some people do it with, an established life already, like with kids and, being married or having a life partner or something. It just, there's so much flexibility that has to be there, and it can be done. I just know that for me, being single and willing and able to do basically whatever it took, I was willing to do anything to get that, really, like at that time, it was like to get that first 1,000 hours, then it was to get turbine time. But, it's tough. It is tough. The pay's really crummy, which is understandable. Like, you're not a great pilot when you have, 300 hours. You're just not. So like, insurance is high, and I mean, you're good enough, but you're not, you don't have a lot of experience. And so the more experience you get in flying, the more your pay goes up. And so it just is what it is. You have to make a lot of sacrifices to the helicopter gods.
Yeah, it's crazy. I talked to a lot of people that listen to the podcast. I'm sure people will be listening to this one that are exactly that archetype. The individual that has kind of lived a different career. They're adults. They're married. They have kids. They have an established path, and they want to go and do this crazy helicopter thing. And honestly, my first step is to try to talk them out of it. Not that I have negative things to say about helicopters or the industry, but it's just difficult, like you said, when you have all these other commitments. Yeah. And you just have to go into that knowing that. And I feel like the people that I've talked to, it's like, yeah, they've taken the demo flight, so they're going to not listen to me, right? Like, they've flown the helicopter.
Yeah, they're hooked.
But they're like, that's cool, Halsey. Thanks. And some of them are also in a different position financially, though, right? Like, some of these guys or gals have made enough money in a career where they can go and pursue a career, right? I got a buddy of mine that has a very successful legal practice. He's a big podcast listener, by the way. Shout out to my boy Garrett. But we were just talking the other day about him getting a CFI. He's like, well, why do I do that? I was like, well, dude, go teach at one of your flight schools. Like, you don't have to do it for your career, but like, just go and have fun. He's like, oh yeah, I should do that. So there are people out there that can have other careers and still kind of commercially fly, or people that have made some money and they're able just to, not have to necessarily pay the bills for the first couple of years, but it's a path, man.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Well, and you're gonna move a lot too. That's a really hard thing, especially if you have a partner who's got an established career and you have kids. You're guaranteed you're gonna move a lot. So the less things you own, the easier it is to move, and the cheaper it is to move. You're not gonna make a lot. And I don't think that's wrong. I don't think you can change that. That's just how if you want to become a helicopter pilot, there's just things you have to do. It's just how it is. It's a really niche skill. So, there's helicopters all over the world, but there's really not that many. So you have to go to where the work is.
Yeah. And some of those, most of the time, locations aren't super desirable. That's another reason why flying tours at Maverick was pretty cool, because Henderson, Las Vegas, I mean, that was a nice place to live.
I was not interested in living in Las Vegas, to be honest. Like, it was another one of those mindsets where it's like, I'll move there because I have to, no worries, like, is what it is. But then when we got there, it's like, this place is awesome. You can go out into the desert and go shoot, or go, whatever. You can go rock climbing. I mean, there's everything. Or you can go to a 5-star restaurant and see an amazing world-class show all in the same day. It's like, really, really cool place.
Neat community.
It's actually a great place to raise a family. We really miss Vegas.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I had no interest, and I had never gone to Vegas. The first time I had ever gone to Vegas was when I interviewed with Maverick, honestly. Well, that's not true, actually. I did go one time before to interview at Sundance. I did not get the job. Thank you for not hiring me. And Yeah, if I was like Vegas, I mean, okay, sure, whatever. My friends go there a couple times a year and they get wasted, whatever. You just have like this idea of the Strip. And man, Henderson as a whole is such a wonderful community. All the people that support that tourist destination, the great people. There's great food outside of the Strip too. Like just really good culinary experiences, great
tons
shows.
of parks, walking trails. It's super good
And
spot.
And it was kind of cool. I'm a social butterfly, and I thought it was always fun that at like any given weekend, I knew someone in Vegas, right? Like we were seeing friends all the time. People want to come visit. My parents loved going there. My brother loved going there.
Yeah.
So like all this cool stuff. But we're going to run out of time. So we need to talk about how the heck you're flying these giant helicopters and what that path looked like.
Okay.
So Inspire, and actually real fast, so this is bugging me. It looks like they're giant like goggle lenses behind you. Like what is that?
That right there?
Yeah.
What is that? This.
Yeah, like that red thing.
Yeah, that's the window. That's the co-pilot's window. We take it out because it gets too hot flying, so we take it out.
It looks like ski goggle, like a like my I can put different lenses on my ski goggles. I'm like, what do you have?
Yeah, it's a big giant window.
Okay, it drives me nuts. Okay, go for it.
So when I was deciding, it was probably time to stop doing tours and to move on. And you had mentioned a lot of guys at Maverick, kind of the path they do is CFI, tours, EMS. And I had also mentioned that I had wanted to do EMS when I first started flying. But I kind of decided EMS wasn't for me because it's starting to change now, but the pay back then was just, I thought, criminally low for the risk involved in doing, night graveyard shifts and NVG flying, and a lot of it's single engine stuff. And then you also have to, move to places where you have no interest in living most of the time because the bases where people want to live, nobody leaves those bases. So there's never openings. So I kind of decided EMS wasn't going to be for me until maybe way later in my career. But at, that time I was like, I don't think I'm going to do EMS. I was kind of like, well, what do I want to do? And so utility sounded interesting. Especially because the firefighting part of utility was something I also wanted to try and do. And then within firefighting, there's like a bunch of different types of aircraft you can fly. So, and because I know people that are, multiple years ahead of me in the career, I was able to get information from them about like type 1s or type 2s, what's the difference, long lining, all this kind of stuff. So
what is the difference?
So there's like 3 classes of category for the Forest Service. A type 1 is like A-stars and 407s or light aircraft. Type 2 is going to be like medium. So like Hueys is a type 2. And then type 1s are going to be all the heavy lift helicopters, like what I fly, Blackhawks, Chinooks, Sky Cranes and stuff like that.
Type 1 or type 3?
Type 1 is going to be the heaviest and type 3 is going to be the lightest.
Okay.
Yeah, did I say that backwards? I might have. Sorry.
It's all good. I'm like, you're like, yeah, I think it was backwards. But so the big boys are type 1.
Yeah.
And then type 2 gets a little bit smaller. And then type 3 is your A-stars, 407s.
Yeah. And then each like size kind of has different like usage platforms. So like typically the heaviest helicopters are going to be mostly just dropping water. And that was something that I was like, well, if I'm going to be flying on a fire, I want to be dropping water. Yeah. So I just kind of had to figure out like, well, how do I get time in a big heavy helicopter? Like, where do I go to do that? And so I had a couple buddies that had gone overseas to Afghanistan to fly for Columbia helicopters. So that kind of piqued my interest too. Cause I was like, man, that'd be interesting for sure. Like just a very different type of flying, different place, super dynamic environment. So I kind of started looking into doing that, and I ended up applying and getting hired at a company to do that. That ended up flying 61s and got hired with them and went overseas and spent a couple years overseas flying a 61. So that's how I got into heavies. And then when all the stuff overseas started coming to an end, started looking for work, got a few different jobs in between then and where I work now, which could take a long time to talk about. But I thought I wanted to maybe do power lines. So I went to work for a couple companies doing power line work. The first one I got hired at was Haverfield, and they went out of business while I was in training because they had a couple of crashes. Unfortunately.
Talk about bad luck. Like in
that was pretty. yeah, it was like, okay, now I got to find a job again.
Was Marcus there?
Marcus worked there for quite a few years. He's at Winco now, but
Oh, he's at
he's
Winco.
he's doing power lines. He's an amazing
I love.
power
Can
line
we
guy.
just can we just pause for a second and talk about how silly that guy is? I love Marcus.
Dude, one of the nicest people.
Hey, Mr. Halsey, Mr.
Yeah.
Tony. I was like, Marcus, you're the first person I've ever met that calls everyone like Mr. and then first name. He's like, I
Yeah.
love that. Like,
Dude, he's nicest guy.
I remember Casey Allen actually. So before I started my training, I think Casey had started a couple training classes before, and Marcus was in his class. And I remember Casey being like, I don't know about this guy. He's like, he's too happy. He's too friendly. Like, I don't trust him. You know, he's too nice. You know, he can't be that nice. And then you get to know him, and Casey will tell you the same. You get to know him. He's like, no, he's just that nice guy.
Just a nice person.
And Tammy, his wife, I mean, she's a gem. But yeah, I remember him going to Haversfield. So that's another example of, you know, a disappointing pivot, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough too. That was a tough time in my career because the company that I was flying the 61s with overseas, when the overseas stuff ended, there was just a lot of like turmoil and stuff going on at that company that made it really tough because I was there for another solid year. Pay cuts and promises and, you know, broken promises and things that were just really challenging. So when I left there, it was kind of like, oh man, I'm kind of getting a fresh start. This is going to be great. And then Haverfield went out of business. And then I got hired at a company out in California doing power lines in a 407. And I was there for a while, but they had a pretty toxic culture and I just wasn't interested in staying there because it just wasn't a healthy place for me. And I actually got a call from a buddy that was working at Croman and was like, hey, they're looking for guys if you're interested. And so that's how I ended up in fires because a buddy called me up and was like, hey, they're looking for someone. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, I forgot. I wanted to do fires in my career. Let's do it.
I think that's cool too. I didn't realize that you had this ambition of being a firefighter as a little kid. I actually had that same ambition too. I wanted to be a firefighter, and then it was pilot. It was like from age 3 to 5, firefighter, and then 5 on was pilot. So I think that's pretty neat that you get to kind of now mix both of those passions. And I would argue that fighting fire from a helicopter is probably one of the cooler things that you can do really in anything, especially in a helicopter. Since you already had command pilot experience in the S61, did you get in right away as a command pilot, or were you SIC at first?
Yeah, so I was already typed in the 61. So I was already typed. I had long line experience, vertical reference stuff from power lines and when I worked overseas. So when I got picked up at Croman, it was for a captain position. I have a lot of hours, so I met the hour requirements for the Forest Service, and yeah, I got put right into the captain's seat.
Was it stressful going into a job like firefighting without having any previous experience in that type of arena? Because I feel like someone like Casey, for instance, you know, Casey is now flying with Croman. He's SIC flying with you, and he may not want to be an SIC forever, but he's probably absorbing and soaking in a lot of, oh, how did this whole fire thing work? So is that a difficult transition going straight to captain?
No, I don't know. I mean, I think anytime you get a new job in the industry, it can be a little bit stressful just because, like, especially if you're going from one sector to another, right? Like tours to EMS or, you know, like what I was doing overseas to power lines or whatever. So I had already kind of experienced like quite a few different changes. So it was just kind of like another change that just like, okay, well, there's policies and procedures and there's things that are put in place and SOPs that I can read and study. And there's Forest Service documents that I'm able to, I just got dispatched, by the way, but
Nice.
yeah, so I'm gonna have to get going.
Well, this is perfect. Hey, look, this is real world stuff. I want you to focus on being a pilot. So maybe we can meet again and just have a little wrap up. Go fly. Tony, thank you for coming on. We're going to finish with Tony when he lands. What's up, guys? It's Halsey, and as you saw there, we were chatting with Tony. He was doing his thing. He's fighting fire, and he got dispatched. And because of that, we had to end the podcast quite quickly. But I was having so much fun talking with Tony that I've asked him to join us back for a second episode where we can really dive more into flying big helicopters, flying fire, what that all looks like. So next week's episode will be part 2 with my boy Tony. So to be continued.
Please stay tuned for a final word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
This is for those that are ready to launch their helicopter career training. Hillsboro Heli Academy, the place where pilots from around the world begin their journey. With a real-world experience and a reputation that speaks for itself, visit flyhaa.com because it's different here.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.